Welcome to Sensitive Empowered with Matt and Alissa. We are having our, summer wrap up. We're going to be wrapping up for the summer. So this is going to be our last episode for a few months. We're going to be going into rest mode, which is going to be what this episode is going to be all about. So the title of today's episode is called You Matter: How to Make Yourself a Priority as an Empath or HSP. Yes. So this topic was inspired by just a huge realization that I've been having lately around just my power, being in my power, truly in my power. And I feel like I haven't been fully in my power. I've been getting to a place in my life where I've been like kind of teetering with being fully in my power, and started to realize, like, through periods of burnout and a pretty bad depression that I've been in over the course of the last few years. It was a burnout and a depression mixed, with my nervous system telling me that I've been doing too much, and have been for, well, probably since I was a child, just like totally leaving myself and going into other people's experiences, whether that be codependency or counseling, therapy, coaching, any of these modalities where the primary focus is on the other person. So just in the last few months, I've had a realization that I need to start focusing more on myself and taking more holidays. And I just had a birthday and I took my birthday off, and it was on a Tuesday. I've never taken a weekday birthday off in probably a decade and a half, something like that. It's always been work, push through. So I started something called Operation I Matter. And I'm pretty excited about this because I'm really learning to prioritize myself, take time for myself, take long holidays if I need. And it's allowing me to show up for my clients more. Believe it or not, more time for me means I'm more charged. I have more to give. So that's where this topic came from. We're essentially building off of last month's episode called the Overfunctioning Empath: How to Stop Taking Responsibility for Everyone. If you have not listened to that yet, I highly recommend listening on Alyssa's podcast or watching on my YouTube channel. And because we're going to be building on that conversation really at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm just curious, like, what is that topic? Just me even saying that, like, you matter, how to make yourself a priority as an empath or HSP. What comes to mind for you, Alissa?
Yeah, I mean, I'm steps behind you in this because I recognize where I still have so much room to grow
Mm,
when it comes to prioritizing myself and slowing down.
mhm,
Um, like when you were talking about taking more holidays and things like that, and just like intentionally creating more rest, it's like I just could highlight the ways where I'm like, ooh, I really need to work on that.
mm,
Because for me, the way I deprioritize myself, or kind of just, I'm yeah, not thinking of myself as much, is just with like overworking. This has just been a chronic thing that I have
mm,
done. I'm so passionate, I'm so driven. Like I know we like share this same experience, and that's why it's been so healing to have you as a friend. And I think just like
mm,
this conversation is going to be great and eye-opening, because that's where I can get really hooked in,
mhm.
and I don't even realize a lot of times that I am not prioritizing myself, because I can just be so in it and just go, go, go. And
Yeah,
and it becomes like a pattern, and like your nervous system, I think, gets used to kind of being at a certain level of like pace, that
totally.
you can like become, you don't even recognize that you're deprioritizing yourself. And so for me, then it's like, yeah, it's just like, honestly, it's like the mental chatter sometimes, where it's like, ooh, I'm out for a walk, but I'm thinking about these things that I need to do. So it's like where it's kind of creeps into other areas of my life.
Yeah.
And so this is like vulnerable for me to admit, right? It's like, oh, I got to work on that. But I do. That's where I don't prioritize myself. And
Mhm.
I often take my spare moments to do more work, because I love it, but
Yeah.
I'm not taking enough time to fuel myself and other needs that I have. So that's very highlighted for me, for sure.
Mhm. Yes, we're so similar. I think I'm like a decade older than you, I think, right? I'm
Yeah.
39.
Yeah, I just turned 32. So
Okay, so like,
7.
yeah,
Yeah.
7 years.
Hmm.
And we had this conversation over voice note, and I was just saying there's a part of me that feels like a little bit of an older brother. Like I'm like, don't make the same mistakes that I
Hmm.
made because I went into like I had to. It got to the point where I was having to dissociate to get through my work days and to pump out all this content. And then like about 2 years ago, I just hit a brick wall and I fell over, and I've been basically falling over and like just getting by in my career but it's been good. It's been a good fall over. I've been resting, napping, doing these things. And it's funny because when you talk, I'm like, don't go down that same road. Like find a way to prioritize yourself at this point, even if it's like 75-25. I was operating at like 90-10 maybe, which is like it's a low, you're going to drain your gas tank really quickly that way. And now I would say I'm like operating probably at like 60% me and 40% my work. And I know it'll swing back because I think I operate good at like a 70-30 split, maybe even like 60-40 with work being the primary thing because we are in servitude. We are here to do this work, and like our work is our life. It's our mission. We're here to do this. So I want to honor that side of things for both of us because I get the sense that you're like that as well. But sometimes the ratios get too small on the me side. So I'm really swinging the pendulum back and learning how to really take care of myself. And and that's just showing up in the sense of uh, like having more fun, like
Hmm.
like truly napping more. Like I cut back my client load by 30%. So that 30% has freed me up to truly like have a nap in the daytime if I want to have one, or I've been going for hour-long walks in the day and then maybe doing a bit of jogging with that. Just like really and like nurturing myself, nurturing my body. So yeah, I'm just curious for like, what do you do to prioritize yourself? What are some things that you do?
Yeah, that's beautiful, by the way. I'm just like so inspired by the way you've made shifts. And I
Mm,
just feel that in your energy and the way that you show up. And so I'm like, okay, this is how, this can work.
yeah.
For me, the ways I prioritize myself are I love having space to myself in the morning and just like intentionally moving into my day. And
Mhm.
so that means like waking up early and getting up before my daughter Blaine. So it's like I can usually get in at this point, an hour and a half to myself where it's like I always move my body first thing because that just like really helps me kind of like ground into my body and just like feel good. It's just like,
Mm,
oh, I love starting the day like that. And then meditating, journaling, and I don't check my phone. That is something I've been really strict about because I remember hearing somebody say, like, if you check your phone first thing, it's like your energy is immediately going to other people. You can't help but be like sucked into their lives or like,
mm,
there's reading their messages. It's like, oh, it takes you out of yourself. So
yeah.
don't check my phone. I do, I take out an hour to myself if I can. Sometimes Blaine wakes up and then it is what it is. I have to go with the flow, but I am fierce about that time and it makes such a difference for myself and like my creativity and just like honestly just feeling connected to myself and what I need because I've noticed when I don't have enough downtime to myself to just like, be introspective or just be still, like I just feel super disconnected from like even how I truly feel or what
Mm,
I want or what I need because I'm just like in this urgent moving forward, go, go, go. And
yeah.
so that time for me is really nourishing. So that's like the main way I would say
Mm,
that's like the bulk of the time I'm like have to myself.
yeah.
But I do try and I'm working on this to, take Blaine's nap time to do more time to myself when I can. Like, as a stay-at-home mom, it looks a little bit different, but yeah, just like finding pockets of time to give it back to myself and really just like intentionally check in with how I'm feeling and my body because again, it can be easy to get away from yourself and
Yeah.
especially when you're an empath and you're really connected to everyone else's energy and needs. So it's like even just like mindfully like feeling my feet on the ground and like connecting to my body if I'm feeling a little bit like anxious or like overstimulated, like asking myself what I need and then slowing things down, cleaning up the kitchen, whatever I need to like feel more grounded, like I will
Yeah.
do those things. And it's amazing how much that helps.
Yeah.
Just simple shifts. Like it doesn't even have to be this big breaking things, but I think those are ways that you could show yourself like, hey, you matter. You feeling good matters. Like I'm here for you. I have your
Mhm.
own I have your back. So
Yeah.
those are just some things that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. As I think as HSPs, we're just taking in so much. Like I even think about like what I do for a living. Like I'm sitting across from people and they're sharing themselves with me. As a highly sensitive person, I have great depth and breadth of processing information. So that means I'm bringing in a lot. So if I work with 5 clients in one day, that's a lot of information coming in. And what do we have to do with that? Right? We have to take time to ourselves. We have to process that information. Otherwise, we go into overstimulation. And if we don't go in, if we're not feeling these things, we go into dissociation. So those are our two
Mhm.
options, right? Go into dissociation so we don't feel anything, or we go into overstimulation, or we take time for ourselves. And that's critical, really. Like the time, and this is what I'm learning. Like I'm coming out of dissociation. I'm coming out of using trauma responses as a way to cope with my life and accelerate my business forward. So I'm really like truly learning what my capacity is as a human being. And as an HSP, we have great capacity for like tuning in, being attuned
Mhm.
to connecting with people, to feeling, to all these things. But our capacity is not big for taking in a whole bunch of things and doing a ton of stuff and having a ton of stuff on our plate. And I have an assistant now, and that's been tremendous because I've been offloading things that overstimulate me onto my assistant, and that's been helpful. So I guess like I feel like I finally, for the first time in my life, have achieved like work-life balance, and I can actually like feel what that means to me. And I know for me, like I had to go through this period of like feeling like I was failing, like I wasn't
Mhm.
worthy, like I wasn't helping people, the disappointment. Like that, I think that was one of the main reasons why I was overgiving of myself is because I didn't want to disappoint people.
Mm.
And so that shadow side of being an empath or being a person who cares or has compassion and empathy for people, that's the shadow side for me. It really is. And so I had to kind of go through that and I had to watch aspects of my business die off, or maybe not die off, but just become stale or stagnant. Like when you're not engaging on social media, you're not really growing per se. But the interesting thing was when I like with the universe, working with the universe, which is what I do now. I don't really do marketing or that sort of thing. I work with magnetics and I work with like I'm in the feminine energy in business, and it what I need comes to me. It's the most amazing thing, like
Mm.
truly. And I want to say that to like people who are like driving forward with their masculine, that you don't need to. You can definitely be in that because some people like that energy and it feels efficient and productive for them, but maybe even just becoming more balanced in like half masculine, half feminine, and half yin, half yang, whatever you want to conceptualize it as, and being in the energy of like giving of yourself, yes, driving things forward and you centric, but also let the universe come in and support you and sit back, rest, nap, knowing that the universe is bringing and conjuring up the exact things that you need in that next moment, right? So it's like it requires a bit of trust. My ego did not like it at all.
Mm-hmm.
My ego was like, what are you doing? Your business is going to drown. You're not going to have the resources. You're not going to have the clients or the followers, all these things. And to be honest, I was too tired to care. And I was submitted into this, but I'm grateful now because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm successful in my industry. I've got everything I need. I don't need any more than what I have.
Yes.
And it feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like that. Yeah. It was like almost this experience of surrender for you, where it was like
Mhm.
you're like, I have no other choice but to do this. And I'm curious because as you were speaking about these shifts and letting parts of your business die off and not show
Mhm.
up on social media, and like, how did you support yourself when your ego was really loud? I guess you said you were really tired, so it was kind of like, I
Mhm.
can't deal with this. But, you know, for for somebody who's like not quite at the full burnout place, but they know that they want to make a change, like I guess
Mhm.
how do you would you suggest supporting yourself through that when the voices are loud, like you're gonna fail or people are gonna hate you or blah
Mhm.
blah 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 blah, you know?
Yeah. I honestly wish there was a like an answer or like a shortcut that I could share, like a little hack, but there isn't. Because the thing is, in this journey I'm learning is, with fear and ego, we have to actually face it. And we have to
Mm.
realize that it actually can't take us down. So for me, I
Mm.
had to go through feeling disappointing, like I was a disappointment, or that I wasn't doing enough, or that how am I going to pay my bills? Right. So it was like, yeah, I think it was maybe compassion. I learned to have compassion for myself, and I saw things as they are, not as maybe I thought I wanted them to be or whatever. Like I saw that I was hustling and that I was working harder than I needed to. And I started to kind of see these things. I saw that I was comparing myself to people in my industry like constantly. And like
Mm.
that was my driver. It's like, oh, they put out something new. I have, right. And that was this energy. And it was like, it just felt unhealthy for me. And, so yeah, I think I allowed, and I worked with the universe. Again, I would get out and I would go hiking, or I would get out into nature, or I would talk to a friend. And that's not to say that I don't get urgency still. It still pops up, right? But it's just not like it used to be. It's different. It's a different type of urgency. And it's like I know how to deal with it in the sense of being like reminding myself of the blessings that I've been given. And I think that for me is the medicine because
Mm.
like, and so at the very beginning, when you first practice magnetics or surrendering, it's going to feel so scary. But then once you get provided to, by the universe and you receive it and you're like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't do anything and the universe provided this for me. Then you can start to embody trust and just know that what's going to come is it's going to come, and it's going to come exactly when you're meant to receive it as well. So for me, it was that. It was a little bit of like falling back on the soft cushion of the universe and knowing that I'm always cared for, and we live in a very abundant universe and anything is possible. So as long as I trust and believe that it will be there for me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it reminded me of a couple things. Like, one, I think we're often just in this like forward motion, like energy, like urgent going, whatever, that we just keep driving forward and we never create enough space to actually receive. So we're
Mhm.
constantly in that like masculine do energy. And it's like, oh, I didn't see instant results. Okay, let me do more. And it's like piling on top, on top, on top, on top.
Yeah.
And then you're feeling more drained and exhausted and you're like pushing forward. Whereas, like what you actually need to do in that moment is like lean back, like trust that you've done enough. And
Mhm.
it made me think, I remember we had a conversation about this, maybe it was last year, where I had done this post about urgency. And
Mhm.
I remember like, and this is something I have to lean back into, like something I've taught on before, which is like when you have that urge to rush and go faster, like use that as an opportunity to do the opposite and to show yourself like, hey, we can survive this discomfort of slowing down when you want to, speed up, like showing yourself like, okay, I can handle this. It's going to be okay. It's like that retraining the nervous system rather than just like hooking in and going.
Yeah.
Um, so that can almost be like a trigger to remind yourself, like, no, we're going to try doing things a different way
Yeah.
because it can just be so tempting and so automatic. Um, and I love too what you were talking about with like trusting. That you will be provided for. It makes me think of this moment that really stood out to me. It was like a few months ago, I was at the farmer's market with Blaine and then went to start my car. My car didn't start. The battery was dead. I was totally alone. I was like, crap.
Mm.
Thankfully, I have AAA. I called them and they were able to like come out. But in the meantime, I remember I like checked my email and I had an application for my mastermind come through. And I
Mm.
was like, where did this come from? Turns out I got, this amazing client who I've been working with now for a few months. And like she just randomly applied and I hadn't put anything out there that day. I hadn't posted nothing. I was just like dealing with an, pain in the butt situation. And here this person came through. So it's like, yeah, it can be helpful to like trace the steps backward because a lot of times we are just like looking forward at what we're lacking. But it's
Yeah.
like if you look around at your life right now, like there's probably a lot of things that you're living that are like no big deal to you that you would have been so pumped to have like 5 years ago. Like,
Right.
but we're just conditioned to strive for more and look at like,
Yeah.
what's missing. So that's super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Congratulations on the client.
Oh,
I love
thanks. Yeah,
that.
she's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I was going to say something about, um, oh, it escaped me. Um, so I'm curious for you. Um, what matters the most to you in your business? Because I know you're like me, you have a lot of moving parts. So what is like the thing that you'd be worried about if you were to take some time to yourself, and like what would be the thing you'd be worried about? Like, oh, because I have to manage that, I have to stay on top of it so it always stays um, successful or whatever it might look.
Mm. For me, it's like continuing to reach people and to it's like the impact piece is
Mhm.
really important to me.
Yeah.
And so if there is not something new being put out there all of the time,
Yeah.
then there's that piece of like, oh my gosh. There's also, so it's like that, reaching people. And the other piece of it is this like craving I have to write and be creative, where it's just like, oh, it feels good, but it's often in this form of content creation, which I really enjoy. But
Yeah.
I recognize there are times where it's like, no, this is a compulsion and this isn't actually
Yeah.
coming from a desire. So it's like the desire for impact and to like reach people and then also to have that like creative outlet.
Yeah.
That's it for me, for sure.
Yeah. I like that. And it's so funny how similar we are. It's crazy. Um, but that for me, that desire to create, it's not around right now. So I'm creating like this. I'm co-creating, I should say.
Mhm.
All my creations for the last 2 years have been co-creative, and I haven't made anything or created any like content solo or written content. Really, I've been repurposing content because I've been getting really clear about my intention of why I'm creating. So I
Mhm.
will sit down and I will think like, where is this coming from within me? Am I creating because I feel like I have to keep up with the Joneses? Am I creating because I just saw that Joe Blow just posted something and I feel like I got to keep up with them? Like comparison is a big thing. And then another thing that I would be really, and I was so addicted to this before, was external validation, just like needing the likes, needing people to comment on things. And it's kind of interesting. The universe, I think, taught me some really challenging lessons around this. It was like my content started to feel like starved of external validation. And this has happened to
Yes.
me a few times in my life where the universe is trying to show me how to internally validate, how to love myself, love my work, right? These sorts of things without needing other people to. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons that I'm learning and have been learning throughout the course of the last while around because I think I have some wounding around adequacy, right?
Mhm.
Not feeling good enough, these sorts of things. So I've used my external world to help me soothe that part of myself. And the universe is like, no, no, we want you to learn how to soothe this on your own and how to step into your power and these things. So I think I'm really going through like a rebirth right now around feeling good enough, feeling like I measure up, feeling worthy, feeling true intrinsic confidence in who I am and not needing other people to reflect that to me. Not saying that it's, I'd love to be a 50-50 balance, truly, because external validation feels fantastic. I love it,
Mhm.
but I don't want to
Mhm.
be reliant on it?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I feel this so much and it's just like it is like painful when you go through those times of it being starved. Like
Yeah.
definitely have been there even
Yeah.
recently where I'm like, what is going on? But
Yeah.
right there with you where I'm like, okay, this is clearly a lesson that I need to learn because in those moments, all you want is the quick fix of validation. You're like, I
Yeah.
would just feel so much better if like this, this happened and then
Yeah.
I'd be okay. And it's like, no, you have to sit with like
Yeah.
supporting yourself and loving yourself and,
Yeah.
in the gap between that. But it's just
Mhm.
it can be really, really hard for sure.
Yeah.
But I think about too, like I was reflecting on this the other day, like when I started my work a little over 5 years ago. I just did it blogging just for fun. I'd get like 2 likes on a post. And like, don't get me wrong, like it hurt my feelings sometimes when I'd like put hours into a blog post and like, 2 people would read it.
Yeah.
But I always kept going. I always showed up because my drive was like, oh, I have something to say and I just really want to share it. And so I always think back to that version of me too, where it's like, dang, like, thank goodness she kept going. And, I learned a lot then, but with each different level, I think we can sometimes kind of have different obstacles. It's not like you're ever going to just like arrive and be over it. It's like there's going to be something else that comes up for you to heal. And I think, when you can work through that, it's just like you can be so unstoppable in
Mhm.
in your work when you don't need that. It's just like that is so magnetic and attractive. A person who knows that they are, awesome no matter what, like that's
Yeah.
just that that's attractive. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's I totally resonate with that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. That's impressive. You've come a long way in 5 years, truly.
Oh,
You should be
thanks.
so proud of yourself. Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing. And just even
Oh,
in the last, well, because when did we meet? We met like 3 years ago, right?
I think so. I want to say, yeah, was it 2021, 2020? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
3, 4 years. Yeah, and just even your growth, like your, and yes, there's like your growth, like your work, but there's
Mm-hmm.
like I know you as a person, and I feel you energetically, and your growth has been pretty amazing. Like, being a mother, and yeah, there's been a lot of milestones that you've checked off in the last 4 years, 3, 4 years. That
Thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate that. Well, same back to you. It's always just like nice to have a friend walking the journey with you that you're
yeah,
like actually real with, and
mhm,
you can kind of see each other's evolution.
yeah,
Because man, it can be so uncomfortable to
yeah,
go through all the things. You're like, why is this happening to me? But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, I'm curious about traps. So for the audience, what
Mhm.
traps can we help them be mindful of so they don't fall into it? Like, and I would say traps of neglect,
Yeah.
self-neglect. As an empath or an HSP, what are some things like that you think are really important for the audience to know to be mindful of?
I think like recognizing where they source their sense of worth and value from is
Mm,
really important. So a lot of, the people we work with I'll see they struggle with like the overgiving or just struggling with boundaries, feeling bad ever sharing how they actually feel because they, feel safe when they know other people are happy with them and when they're doing the right thing, quote unquote. Um, and a lot of times too, they're feeling good enough when other people are telling them like, "Oh, you're so helpful," or "Thank you for doing this. You're so thoughtful." They're getting
mhm,
this external validation from how much they do and give. And that
yeah,
feels good. Like we talked about, external validation feels good and it can feel like kind of addictive. But when a person is constantly feeling like they have to do and give more, and it's like you're never going to fill the well or whatever. It's like a bottomless pit. It's never going to be enough. And
yeah,
in the pursuit of that feeling of good and of feeling good enough, you're going to continue to deplete yourself. So yeah, it's like recognizing like where if you stopped doing this thing, like how would you feel about yourself? If you said no to the request and your friend kind of gave you a short answer back, like what would your response be? Because that will
yeah,
give you a sign as to where there's something to look at within yourself.
yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. Yeah, sourcing worth. Oh my gosh, there's so many lessons that I've learned in this pursuit. And um, yeah, it can be tough for people like us, like there's a lot of shame around being empath or HSP. And when we're fueled by shame, we might make choices that prioritize external, it's like the external locus, right? We focus
Mhm.
so much on the external world to make our internal world mirror our internal world of I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm worthy. So yeah, really rooting yourself into like, oh, there's a couple things for me. It would be a big one is capacity. Like look at your capacity. Capacity is like just think of your capacity as a giant barrel, right? And there's only so much you can put in this barrel before it spills over. And so checking in with yourself. That's a big one for HSPs
Mhm.
specifically. Empaths too, but HSPs because we have the sensory stuff. Our bucket isn't as big. Truly, we can't take in as much in our bucket without getting overstimulated and having to dissociate. So um, really looking at like how can I set time aside every day for myself. And if you're somebody that's a ruminator, you overthink, or you have insomnia as an HSP, I think it's critical every, I don't know, 3, 4 hours in the day to take 10 minutes to just let everything you process digest. Because what ends up happening, at least for myself, is I go all day. I don't take any time to process, and then I lay in bed at night, and the first hour of me laying in bed is me processing everything, and then I can't sleep because my mind's going wild. So like take time every day, little bits of just processing everything that you're navigating, and it'll help tremendously. And then in that time that you're processing, you're here. You're tending to yourself. You're with you, right? And
Mhm.
I always say after every interaction that I have, because I very can easily bleed into people, right? I'm very much I just do that naturally. So I'll always say, I command my energy back to me now. That's what I'll say after every interaction, because, and then what I'll do is I'll close my eyes and I'll feel. I'll feel in my body, I'll feel my shoulders or my feet on the ground or my heart beating, and my energy's now back on me. And that's helping me a lot come back into my power, because I'm like, oh yes, I matter, right? My heartbeat matters, my thoughts matter. Like, instead of always being focused on everyone else, it's like, come back home, you know? So
Mhm.
that's been a huge game changer for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that intentional practice. Like it doesn't even have to be this long, like drawn out thing when it
Hmm.
comes to calling your energy back to you. It can be something that's like a snap thing, like I command it back. I love that. And
Yeah.
I really like what you were saying too about the capacity thing. I had done a podcast episode a while back about like capacity versus capability. And it's like, yeah, we're capable of doing a lot of things. Like so many of us were like high achievers, like we can do all the things, but we simply don't always have the capacity for it. And so it's like
Yeah.
having that honest conversation with yourself when someone asks you to do something like, okay, just because I can doesn't mean I should. And I think the other thing too is like not comparing ourselves to people who aren't as sensitive to us, because that's
Yeah.
something I fell into when I worked in the corporate world is I would compare myself to people who could work like 12 hours straight. And
Yeah.
I always would feel like I was falling behind because if I did that, I literally would make myself sick because I was like
Yeah.
burning out and it wasn't okay. So it's like honoring that you're different. And with, with that, it's like self-acceptance. Like, okay, this is how I am. Like I have to take good care of myself. And like
Yeah.
I think about too, it's like this idea of slowing down to speed up. And it's like when we keep trying to push ourselves when we literally don't have any capacity left, it's like we're not even being that like um, efficient. Like it's like it feels kind of dulled anyway. And it's like
Yeah.
the work is going to be 10 times harder for ourselves. So we might as well just like take a rest and come back to it when we have, some sleep under our belt and
Hmm.
we've like meditated and whatever. So it's like recognizing that too. Like if you're trying to push through, like it's probably not even good quality
Yeah.
and you're working way harder than you need to.
Yes. Amen. And you know what's motivating that for me is this underlying little wounded part inside of me that's like, you're going to disappoint people. People will be mad at you if you don't do this. So you know what I've been doing to rebuttal it? I matter too. And I'll say it out loud and I say it with conviction. Like, I matter too. Why do I have to be always, dancing around, prioritizing everyone else? I matter too, which is the whole point of this episode. Like, remind yourself that it's a very powerful phrase to say to yourself, I matter too, right? It's amazing. It's been
I
helping.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I literally got chills when you said that. I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, like people, we need to be saying this to ourselves. And
Yeah.
I think it's like so many people feel like I only matter if people are happy with me, or I'm only matter if I do this, right? It's like I have to like earn this. And it's like just to cut that and even I like entertain the idea, like, no, I matter too.
Mhm.
Dang, that is really powerful.
Yeah. 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 I'm curious if you have any offerings in your portfolio that you could share with the audience that might, um, that they could come and join or do within your milieu, that will help them feel like they matter, like a course they could take or something like that.
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking. My self-worth course would definitely be a really good option for somebody who struggles to feel like they matter because like we talked about, a lot of times we're sourcing our sense of self-worth and value externally and we're trying to overachieve or overgive or, overdo whatever in order to feel good enough. So that's a really great course to help you
Mhm.
identify like where it's stemming from, why you've been doing it, and then taking steps to heal that and show yourself like, hey, I have my own back. I can take care of myself. Literally, I matter too. So
Yeah.
that would be an awesome option for anyone
Mm.
listening.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah, all so good.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
As I was thinking, like one other thing that was coming up too is as you try on this new way of being, like let's say you're used to just like working through your lunch break, for instance, and you decide to actually sit and take lunch for an hour in the sun, you might notice some discomfort come up. You might notice yourself feeling guilty or like, oh no, I'm going to fall behind or my coworkers are going to judge me, whatever. And I
Mhm.
think there's so much healing in just noticing those thoughts coming up and then doing what Matt says, which is telling yourself I matter too, and just seeing what happens because I think we can find so much healing in these like micro moments of our life where our default is to do it this one way, but we decide to just try it this other way. Like the other way is going to feel uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean you're doing anything bad. It's like you're just
Yeah.
training yourself to feel safe doing something new. So that's something I would definitely offer to anyone listening. And I'm going to take the advice myself. So
Yeah.
I'm there too.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. That's what I've been doing. And it's interesting because my experience has been like I've used busyness and productivity and high achievement as a way to mask shame, right? And perfectionism and these sorts of things. And now that I'm taking time to myself, it's like, I'm having to feel that stuff, right? Like it's not just we
Mhm.
slow down and then everything gets better. Like we're gonna have to meet those parts, the parts of us that feel like they're not good enough. Or I remember when I first started slowing down, it was like when I would nap because I was so tired, I would judge myself for being lazy. These
Oh,
sorts of things. So these things need to be felt. They need to because busyness tells us don't slow down because we'll end up feeling too much and it'll be uncomfortable. So in the early stages of I matter, the operation I matter, it's like you're going to meet the feelings. You're going to meet the parts of you that have been feeling the need to drive things forward too. So just be prepared for that and just meet yourself with a ton of compassion and love and reminders like little mantras of I matter too. It's okay to take time to myself. Reach out to a friend if you're feeling overwhelmed by the feelings and thoughts that are coming through. Like we're all in this together. And I think it's really important to remember that. Like most people in today's culture are struggling with this, right? The people that we grew up with technology and this and Instagram and like the compare and despair is so huge now compared to like say our parents' generation where they didn't have that. You didn't get to see what everyone else was doing in their lives constantly 24/7. So if you find you're stuck in a compare and despair cycle, just take a week off of social media. Just get off social media, get out into nature, and remind yourself of what really matters in life, which is like we're here, we're with ourselves, we have family and friends, we have nature, we've got things that we can do beyond just scrolling on our phones and being so entrenched in social media.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Amen. That was beautiful. I'm like mic drop. Like that's that's honestly it, truly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't wait to see all the pictures, by the way, from your epic trip this summer. Just like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I always love that. So I'm just like over here, like, yes, I'm so inspired.
Yeah. Yeah, I took 6 weeks off, but it was a forced leave. It was a personal leave because
Mm,
I was had a bunch of burnout and depression. Um, but I'm taking 5 weeks off because I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm taking
good.
5 weeks off in the summer to go on a road trip and just be with myself. And there's still little voices that's like, oh my God, like your bank account's gonna drain or your clients might need you, and all these things are there. But I'm just like, you know what? Like, truly, we only live once. Like, really. Like, am I gonna remember that I didn't whatever help this person or do this or whatever, that I had a little bit less money in my account? I'm gonna remember the memories of this road trip and all the wonderful pictures that I'm gonna have and the people I'm gonna meet. Like, that's really what life's about?
Yes, 1000%,
Yeah.
1000%. It's like you're going to be supported through it. You
Yeah.
know, all of it. So
Yeah.
that's what we have to remind ourselves of, honestly, all the time, coming back to that very truth that you just said, because it can be easy to get caught up in, oh my gosh, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do
Mhm.
this. And it's like, let's take a step back. Like what actually matters, like, and going there, like on my final days, like, what do I want to remember? Like, you're
Yeah.
not going to care about that Instagram post or whatever. It's like, who cares? My
Yeah.
gosh. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this was like so nourishing for me to hear. I
Yeah.
know people listening are going to be like, yes,
Yeah. Yeah. And we made it a commitment in the next 365 days. You and I are going to try and meet in person for the first time. So
yes,
maybe we can
yes.
record an episode together in the same space.
I feel like I would literally cry. That'd be so awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah.
So cool.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in again for another episode of Sensitive and Empowered with Alissa and Matt. And like I said, we're going to be taking the summer off, so we'll be back recording in September, and we look forward to seeing you guys after we've had some time to freshen up.
Yay. Thanks.
All right. Much love, everybody. Bye.